He's basically like Team Rocket. Like,
Yes! Hi, and welcome back to Quest Markers. On this show, we talk about video games and the stories they tell with a focus on narrative. My name is Marina. My pronouns are she, her. I'm an artist, video game composer, audio engineer, and your host. Today, we're talking about Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. Spoiler warning, we do cover the entirety of the game. And in this episode, we talk about the game's narrative themes, our favorite party members, and of course, the music, and much more. Today's guest is my friend Myleah, a freelancer in the games industry and founder of Lumikha Cosplay Resale. Thank you for being here, and let's get into it. Hello, Myleah. How are you?
hello, I'm doing great. How are you?
I am so good. I am so excited for this episode because we started planning this before the Paper Mario Thousand Year Door remake came out. So I'm stoked.
I know. I was like, it's so great that the remake's coming out because now it gives us even more of an excuse to talk about it.
Yes.
And we can like talk about the comparison between like the old game and the new game. And now there's even more content to cover.
Yes, absolutely. And as I was playing the remake, I also kept being like, wait, I vaguely remember this from playing the original, but I don't. So it was just it was a good refresher. So I'm glad that came out.
Yeah, me too. There's so much that they improved upon in the new game. The remake is so good. So yeah. I'm excited to jump into it.
I agree. Before we do, though, and before we even get to your intro, how are you staying hydrated? What are you drinking?
So I'm having some pink lemonade today. Yeah, because I like regular lemonade. Actually, I think today might be National Lemonade Day. I just remembered that I got like a promo email that I'm remembering, and it said National Lemonade Day. That's just an accident. I'm not here to promote any sort of lemonade.
This is not sponsored by Lemonade.
This is not sponsored. I just really love lemonade.
Wait, I just Googled it. It is. It's National
It really
Lemonade.
is? Yeah, that's a coincidence. That's a total coincidence.
That's so good. I love that. Hell yeah. I wish I had lemonade, but I have a little decaf because it's the afternoon here, and if I drink coffee past a certain time, I will perish and not sleep.
We don't want that.
No, definitely not. And I also have a tiny bit of water left, so I'm good.
Water's
but
good.
I might need to go and get some pink lemonade.
Yes, I think you need to.
Really, the purpose of the show is just for me to learn about fun, fancy, fresh drinks from people. That's really the purpose of the show. It's not to talk about video games. It's just to fill my fridge with delicious things.
Honestly, yeah, I'm probably gonna get boba after this too.
Oh.
I'm just like, I'll send you pics of my fancy drink
goodness.
afterwards.
Yes, please do. Okay, so I actually need to. One last thing before we get into your introduction. I need to go get the Final Fantasy XIV boba at Gongcha.
Oh, yes.
Because I've already gone twice, but it was to get you either get a keychain. Yeah, you get a keychain or an in-game mount, but it was for other people. And so I'm like, well, I need to go and get it for me now. And I think it's over in a few days. So hopefully I make it. But enjoy your boba.
Thank you. Don't you have to buy like 3 drinks in order to get like 1 keychain?
Look, Square Enix can have all of my money.
I was like, bro is opening their wallet. Like,
well, no, I'm going to take my partner with me, and it's good. We'll split the third one.
Okay, I think that makes it a little better.
A little bit more reasonable because it doesn't hold. So
okay, if Paper Mario had a collab, I would also spend money on 3 drinks. So
there you go.
I can't even blame you.
There you go. Exactly. Oh man, I want boba. Okay, maybe I might do that actually later. I don't have time. I'm gonna have to do it tomorrow. Sorry, that was a big detour. Would you mind please introducing yourself for everybody?
Yeah, sure. So yes, hi everyone. I'm Myleah. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a writer. I'm a social media manager. I'm a community manager. I do a little bit of everything. in the games industry. I've worked with a couple of different organizations. I wear a lot of hats, basically. And in my free time, I like to cosplay, do videography. I just like to do all the things sometimes. So
I love that you're like, in my free time, I love to cosplay, and you have some of the most incredible cosplays I've ever seen.
Oh, stop.
No, you genuinely do. We'll have, if you want, we'll include your socials in the description, and people can check out your cosplays because they're amazing.
Yeah. I'm pretty big into cosplay. I've been doing it for almost, well, I was trying to count the years, and then I was like, oh, it's going to be 10 years next year. Oh my God. I've been doing cosplay for almost 10 years, and that's kind of why I started my cosplay sustainability business, to like help make cosplay more sustainable, because I've spent a lot of money on cosplay, and I want to spend less money on cosplay and help others to do the same. So yeah, cosplay's been a big part of my life so far.
That.
Yeah.
Oh, Paper Mario cosplay next.
Yes, I have one planned. I have one planned.
Really?
I'm hoping to do it in February of next year and have a whole partners group. So.
Oh my goodness. Are you open to share? Is it a secret, or are you open to sharing which character?
Well, it's a little bit of a spoiler because I think we're going to talk about our favorite partners, and I'm planning on cosplaying my favorite partner.
Amazing. I'm so excited. Before we talk about Paper Mario, what are you currently playing?
So I have been backseat gaming my girlfriend playing the Elden Ring DLC.
Hell yeah.
And she just beat the final boss.
We spoke about this like 2 weeks ago, and I was complaining that I am never going to finish the DLC because of the final boss.
She finally beat the final boss, and it was very cool. I will say that. So have you beat it yet?
No, I've probably spent maybe cumulatively 4 hours, and everyone that I've spoken with is averaging 8 to 11-ish hours on the final boss. So
yeah, that's kind of where we landed at on the longer end of that.
Man. Yeah, I can get to phase 2 very reliably, like almost every single time, but then I'm just like, what is this?
Do you know like Unfair Mario, like where it's just like impossible? Yeah. I'm like, that second phase is literally just Unfair Mario.
It kind of is. Yeah, I'm gonna need some pointers, so I'm gonna message you afterwards.
Yeah, I will. I'll try. I'll do my best.
I love that. I have been playing. I am so deeply obsessed with Outer Wilds, and I knew nothing before I started playing this game. Shout out to my friend Josh for recommending it. It is incredible. It does open world so well. I am terrified of space also, so it was a bit hard for me to play, just because space just genuinely horrifies
if you
me.
have a fear of space, I was going to say Outer Wilds is probably not the game for you.
I didn't know. I go into every game not knowing anything on purpose because I don't want to be spoiled. Myleah, I'm still terrified of space. I'm slightly less terrified of space.
Outer Wilds made you less terrified of space?
Surprisingly so. I think it's a little bit too much exposure. I think maybe helps.
It's kind of comforting, I guess, because you get to like do so much exploration, and it's like you're kind of given the power to explore. So it's like, I can see how it's like kind of exposure therapy for space. I can see it.
I think the thing that helped me the most is you can unlock meditating this is a slight spoiler for Outer Wilds, but it's a loop-based system. So it's like an open world roguelike. And you can meditate instead of perishing to go to the next loop.
Yeah.
And that helps me. So anytime I get really, really scared, I should just meditate.
Meditate. No, that's definitely the strat.
Yeah. So I'm near the end now because there's like 2 mysteries left. And I'm so close and I don't know where to go. But I also just picked up Bo Path of the Teal Lotus, and it's so good. So good. I'm definitely on an indie binge right now because I want to support smaller studios. So I've started that. I'm about an hour in only, but I'm excited to stream that as well. It's a gorgeous game.
Yeah, I've also been like on an indie binge recently. I picked up Ib a little bit ago. I've been like in my RPG Maker phase, and so
Yeah.
I was playing a bit of that as well. So yes, we need to keep supporting our indie creators. They're doing the
100%.
good stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed. Cool. Well, we are here today to talk about Paper Mario Thousand Year Door. And I'll start by giving us a story summary, if that's okay. And then we can get into things.
Yeah.
All right. Keep me honest, Myleah.
I will.
I tried to condense it.
It's a big story. It's a big story to condense.
It is, yeah. It's a long game. It was nearly a 40-hour game for me, but all right, so the story goes. Long ago, a seaside town was destroyed by a cataclysm and it sunk into the depths of the earth. Rogueport, our hub town, was built on top of this site. And one day, Princess Peach visits Rogueport and buys a magical map, sending it to Mario before she is, as predicted, kidnapped. Not by Bowser this time, but by in some foreign entity, some foreign humanoid entity named Grotus and the X-Nauts. And Mario receives this magical map and learns that it can be used to collect the 7 crystal stars in order to open up the Thousand-Year Door. We don't really know at this point what's behind the Thousand-Year Door. So Mario sets off on his journey to collect the crystal stars, meeting new companions along the way, and they are Goombella, Koops, Madame Flurry, Yoshi, Vivian, Admiral Bobbery, and, I didn't know this, Ms. Mouse, who is an optional party member.
Yeah.
The team finds themselves going through Petal Meadows, Bogley Woods, Glitzville, Twilight Town, Keyhall Key, the Excess Express, Poshley Heights, the Moon, and the Palace of Shadows. Meanwhile, Peach is being held on the moon and befriends a supercomputer named Tech, who eventually wants to help Peach escape. And simultaneously, Bowser is looking to collect the crystal stars and kidnap Peach himself, but fails each step along the way. And which is so good.
Yeah, he's basically like Team Rocket. Like,
yeah!
He's failing so hard.
It's so good. And it's 2 of them. It's Bowser and I think, is it Kammy?
Yeah, Kammy Koopa.
So good. Those sequences are excellent. But in the end, Mario finds all the stars and unlocks the Thousand-Year Door where the Shadow Queen slumbers. And we learn that Grotus kidnapped Peach as a vessel in order to give the Shadow Queen's spirit a corporeal body, or a corporeal form. And while Grotus's plan was to control the Shadow Queen and bend her power to his will, she wasn't having any of that, and she essentially blasts him into oblivion, which is very funny. We then defeat the Shadow Queen and save the day. It's one of those stories that takes you through all these different environments. I love the party member system. Like, there's so much to talk about, but I know that this is one of your favorites, if not your favorite game. So I would love for us to start with your take. Tell me a little bit more about why you love the game so much.
Yeah, it is such a big question.
Yep. I'm so sorry.
For me, the Thousand-Year Door is one of the first games where I really felt like I was going on an adventure, a huge adventure. And it constantly unfolded with more twists and turns than I ever anticipated. I started out playing like Mario 64, where there wasn't really much of a story beyond, like, Princess Peach is captured and you want to like stop Bowser. Okay, kind of point A to point B. But Paper Mario, the series overall, I played Paper Mario 64 first. It really picks up that narrative element of just like actual, like, concrete storytelling. Like, there are different character plot lines. There are so many characters. There are so many unique characters that aren't seen anywhere else in the Mario series. And I think that's what makes the Thousand-Year Door so special, is that it's such a character-driven story, which is really rare for, I'd say, like a Mario game series. Really, the only other, like, Mario game series you see this is in the Mario and Luigi games. But yeah, Nintendo doesn't tend to do super narrative focused games with Mario, except for like these RPG games. And I don't know. I just remember when I was a kid, I played this back when I was like probably like 10 or 11 years old. And just like each chapter was something new, and I played it with my sister. And we would do character voices while reading the stories when we would encounter each new character, and just like meeting them and hearing their stories and like connecting them and seeing the reoccurring characters. I think it just made it such a fun story to discover. I specifically remember playing the Glitz Pit chapter, and you go into this chapter kind of thinking that it's going to be a typical like tournament arc, and you're just going to fight your way to the top. But then it ends up becoming like a mystery, like kind of chapter, and discovering the secrets of the Glitz Pit, like that sticks out in my mind as like one of the most memorable moments in games, is like discovering like the bodies of the people that you were fighting alongside in the Glitz Pit. Like, what was your reaction, I guess, when that happened to the game?
Yeah, I very similar to you. I mean, I played the original ages ago. And as I was playing through the game, I was remembering bits and pieces. And I don't think I actually ever owned the Thousand Year Door. I think it was I'm aging myself, but it was one of those like, go to Blockbuster, get it for the weekend. But yeah, I mean, very similar reaction to you, because again, I was remembering bits and pieces. I'm like, oh, I know that it's not just a tournament. But then, yeah, as you're going through it, it is so much more interesting than just a tournament. And the thing that stood out to me the most in the Glitz Pit, but also just the entire game, is the tone of the game, which is so sarcastic and so cheeky and so over the top. And it doesn't feel like a Mario game. And similar to you, I had actually the only Mario games that I've played are Mario 64 and Super Mario Sunshine, which I loved Sunshine. And so going into this, you're kind of expecting a similar tone, but you go in and it's this like really sarcastic and cheeky game. And I wrote a couple of examples down here. Early on, Peach says, quote, "I can't believe I've been kidnapped again. Everyone must be worried again." End quote. Like it knows what it is, and it's done in a way that's really fun. Or something like when you ask for the crystal star from Cortez on Keyhole Key, Cortez goes, quote, "What do I need 1 or 2 extra gems for? I didn't really like that one anyway." End quote. It's like, what do you mean?
Yeah, there's like so many like funny little moments of like dialogue. Like even like Grubba in the Glitz Pit, he has like this southern twang, like, and he just uses like these funny like phrases like "great galloping gulpits." It's like it's so funny and silly.
Yeah, and I mean, to your point, going back to your original question, it's you're going through, especially that chapter in Glitzville, where you're like, this is so much more than just a competition. And they set up the expectation that, hey, you're just going to be competing in this tournament. And I think there's something like 19 battles that you go through.
Yeah.
But it is so much more interesting than just you go into these battles. It ends up becoming this mystery of people are missing and what's going on. And Grubba is this villain that, like, Grubba was my least favorite character because Grubba was so gross and was talking to everyone in such a condescending, demeaning way. I was like, oh my God.
He's just the worst.
Just the worst, like truly the worst, but also not something that you would expect in a Mario game. So yeah, that was a really, really great chapter.
Yeah, and you think that Rock Hawk is like the end boss, but it's actually Grubba because he's actually pulling all the strings behind the scenes, and it's just like my mind is just like blown. Like, what? That's crazy. He's got this huge machine, like, and secretly his secretary has been trying to figure out the secret behind her brother being missing. Like, so cool.
It's so good. It's great foreshadowing and just it's so over the top that you're like, is this foreshadowing or is this going to mislead me? And it ends up being the latter, but it's done in a really fun way where the game kind of always keeps you on your toes and you don't know what to expect. Even with side dialogue. Like I remember there's a point in Twilight Town where you have to listen to the crows gossip, and it's so good in order to get the clue for the next section. But one of the conversations that are unrelated to the main story is a couple of crows are talking, and one of them goes, quote, "He's just gone fiber optic on his home network. You believe that?" And good. It's like, what are you talking about? It's so good. It is so over the top that there's fourth wall breaks where the character directly talks to the player. And I think that is the charm of this game.
Yeah. I'd say the dialogue really, really carries the game, and the voice, the character writing voice is like very strong throughout the entire game. And I think that inspires a lot of my own writing is like tone, kind of, it's like the story knows what it is and it's playing that up and it's playing that to the audience. And I really like playing with that in my own writing. So I would definitely say that Paper Mario has been one of those inspirations for my own script writing. It's just great examples of writing, especially with that sassy tone.
Yeah, it's so good. And to your point, it is very character driven. It feels like every character has their own identity and their space in the narrative. And because the game knows what it is, it can use those characters in an effective way to drive the narrative forward, even though it is like a very silly, at the end of the day, narrative. But who's your favorite party member? I'm just so curious to know what cosplay you're going to be doing.
So my favorite party member is Vivian.
Yes.
Yeah, she's great. I love the color pink. And so like when I was younger, I was just automatically like, oh, she's so cute. She has a pink hat. And she's just like really sweet. She's just such a sweet character. But also like her skills are extremely flexible in battle. You can use them for either defense or offense. And then like also you can attack all of the enemies using like fiery jinx. One thing about Paper Mario that I really like too is the turn-based combat, which we didn't get to touch on yet. I think that it's like actually really engaging because it has you kind of do these battles, which might be repetitive after a little while, but you have so many different partners and different skills and badges that you can play around with that you can keep it from getting stale. And I really liked Vivian for her skills and how like versatile she was in battle. But like really what I love most about her is that she like stands up for herself in the end against her abusive sisters, especially Beldum. And she kind of like forges her own path, like finding her adventure with Mario, and she learns to grow into her own identity and becomes more confident. And what I think is really cool is that we get to see this through those like several encounters that you get with the Shadow Sisters throughout the story. And then with like Dupless joining them and kind of like replacing her in the end. But she's like, I don't really need you guys. Like I've found my own way and I'm here with Mario and I'm going to do my own thing. And I love that. I love that about Vivian. I also think that she's like just fantastic trans representation in a Mario game, especially of all things. Like, who thought that we would get like trans representation in a Mario game? And when I was a kid, I never really thought much of it, but like now that I understand my own queerness and my own identity, I just like really love that Vivian is just, she's so sweet and so herself, and she represents like our community. And yeah, I just love her as a character. I could give a whole podcast about Vivian.
So beautifully said. I will second everything that you said. I want to give firstly a quick shout out to Yoshi as well, who's a very feisty character, and you see Yoshi hatch out of their egg. And Yoshi's ready to throw hands right away. Like, just a very, very funny character. So quick shout out to Yoshi, but I agree on Vivian in every regard that you mentioned. And I pretty sure I kept Vivian in my party the most once you get Vivian, which is unfortunately a bit later on in the game, but I think narratively it works because you get to see her character development from, someone who is dealing with really abusive family members to someone who really grows into her own. And I guess this kind of leads me into my second point. I wanted to talk about narrative themes. And one of my favorite themes in the game is this idea with Vivian of found family, of leaving her sisters, leaving this place that was really abusive, and joining Mario's party and being able to accept kindness and flourish and be herself. And she just gets to have her space, and you get to see her flourishing and thriving and being able to recognize kindness and accept kindness and be kind to herself. And it doesn't turn her bitter that she was mistreated in the past. It helps her appreciate, I think, what she has now. I love everything about Vivian and Vivian's story. And to your point, I think it's fantastic trans representation. Even though, sadly, it is just one line in the game. I wish there was a little bit more there, but maybe it is good that it was just one line. But yeah, I love Vivian with all my heart. I beat the game with Vivian, and 100% agreed. Love Vivian. I can't wait to see your cosplay. So are you cosplaying Vivian?
Yeah, so I'm really cosplaying Vivian. And I also just think it's so cool that she even has the connection to the Shadow Queen. She's kind of there from the beginning to the end of the story. Narratively, she's such an important character. So I really love her. I'm planning to do Vivian. I'm thinking, I'm still designing how exactly I want to do the cosplay, but once I figure it out, I'll definitely share it with you, of course.
I can't wait. That's going to be so good. What other narrative themes stuck out to you in the game? Because I think there's, to your point, for a Mario game and a game that's usually go collect the stars and save the princess, it is so much more than that. So I'm curious what else stuck out to you.
I think that for me, I guess from childhood, like I mentioned, it was really about that adventurous theme. So I guess narrowing in closer, it would be more the joys and sorrows of adventure and chasing your dreams. We kind of see this with each of the partners, I think. With Goombella, she's going to college and she's studying under this renowned professor, and Madame Flurry, she misses her career as an actress and she joins Mario to kind of chase that and find her spark again. And then the Yoshi kid is born and has only one dream, which is to be just like Mario and to be super strong. And Vivian wants to be accepted by her sisters, and then she just realizes that she just needs to accept herself and find herself. And then Bobbery, who loved the sea and he loved his wife just as much, and then he discovers that love of the sea again through her letter. And oh my gosh, that story is just that hit me. That was one of the moments in the story that still got me even when I played it during the remake, is just how sometimes when you're on this journey of adventure, that there are those ups and there's those downs, but each of those the characters have their sense of adventure and they're chasing their dreams. And there are things that are difficult about chasing your dreams, and there are things that are easy, and so I just really loved that story of adventure. In the story, that I would say that.
Oh, my heart. I love. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that's woven into the entire narrative, and it is so nice seeing every character develop. One thing maybe on this topic of narrative themes that I wish that they explored a little bit more, and I'm keen to get your thoughts on this, is the theme of tech, the supercomputer learning what love is. And it's heavily implied that Tech falls in love with Peach the more he gets to know her. And I was like, where is this going? I vaguely remembered it from playing the original as a kid. It kind of went over my head when I was playing it that young. But it still kind of went over my head here, because I don't think that it was explored to the full extent that it could have been explored. Mind you, Peach doesn't have really long sections of the game, although it is really cool to play as someone who's not Mario.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to get your thoughts there because I mean, it was deeply unsettling playing those sections. But then, like, my favorite game is Nier Automata, so like, you know,
Nier plug, Nier Automata plug,
Nier Automata plug every episode. So I love the theme of exploring like can something that's artificial, whether it's a computer or an android or a robot, like can it experience human emotions? And I think Nier Automata does that really well. But I think here they touched on it a lot, but it didn't go maybe as deep as I wanted it to. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that like when I was younger, I was just like, I don't think I really got it. Like, I was definitely like, oh yeah, I think he had a crush on her, but I didn't really like understand the concept of like, oh, he's like a supercomputer. He's like a computer that like gains sentience. But like, honestly, I really liked that plot when I was like younger. I just like thought it was like cute. And ever since then, I've just always loved like robots, like learning to love and like that kind of theming in the stories. So I'm like, I feel like Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door was the blueprint for me, like with the robots learning to love kind of plot lines. Yeah, I think they could have done more. I think that for a Mario game, them exploring this theme is like risky. Like, I don't want to give them like props for like, oh, they did, a little bit of interesting exploration there. But like, I think that the Paper Mario series overall, like they try to like dabble in kind of serious topics, but then they don't go all the way. Like, I would say this with Bobbery and Scarlet's story too. It's like, it's the admiral. He goes out to sea. He's chasing his dreams. He loves the sea. He's out on the ocean. She's at home. She gets sick. Like, and they explore that a little bit, and we get that, and then it's like, oh, it's sad. And then he gets the letter and he goes back out, and it's like, okay, and then that's kind of it. But we don't really explore the grief, the guilt that he felt. Like, you just kind of have to go back into his house and like pester him, right? But we don't really like explore much beyond that. It's just like, I almost feel like you want to get you just want to get this quest over with so that he can come with you to go on the voyage, but you don't actually like give him the chance to grieve over this letter that he's been denied like all of these years. Like, the bartender was holding on to that letter for so long. He could have given it to him, and we don't really have time for him to like sit with that. So I think that storyline and like text storyline and a few others, I think that they're like, oh, we want to touch on this, but we are not going to go all the way.
I think that makes sense. Yeah. And I didn't even, that's a really, really great example, actually, especially because Bobbery is a main character in the game and as a party member. They don't really explore that grief as much as another game would. So if you want to explore the themes of machines gaining sentience and also grief and what it means to be human, go play Nier Automata. So Square Enix, please call me. No, but it is like Bobbery is really a great example of someone who clearly their internal world is in turmoil and Bobbery is going through a lot. And then there's this call for adventure and he's needed. But we don't quite see, I would imagine what he's going through is the struggle of even like going out and doing things and going through the stages of grief. We don't really get to see that. So yeah, I'm definitely with you on that.
Yeah, I feel like with a lot of the partners, it's almost like you get to dip your toes into like the genre of story that they wanted to tell, but they don't necessarily like have the space or time to like tell like a very, very, very thorough story.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, and the game is just jam-packed with so much anyway that, and it's a pretty long game, right? Like it's 40 hours. It's kind of this question of balancing, and I'm not a writer, so I'd be curious to get your take on this, but balancing, I mean, I do produce, balancing having a game be X amount of time with what are all the stories that we want to tell? What's the extent of all these stories? How do we hit our deadlines, etc.? And calls have to be made about like, yeah, we'll open up this narrative thread and we'll talk about it, but maybe we won't go as in depth as we could if this was the main focus of the narrative, which makes sense. But it is a game that's very, very dense in just the sheer amount that is in the game, not only from your party member standpoints, but then you have Peach's story, you have Bowser's, you have all of the NPCs that you interact with. So it's a lot.
Yeah. I think that because there are so many characters, they just don't really get to everyone. And even among the partners cast, it's like it's like unbalanced because like with Coops, I mean, his story is pretty open shut within the first kind of section. Like his story is, he finds his dad and then realizes that he's not eaten. And then that's kind of the end of his story there. Whereas Vivian, I mean, she continues to really like grow and interact with other NPCs that impact her story until the very end. So yeah, I think it's just kind of like an imbalance in the writing. And of course, like you're not going to be able to focus on every single character. So I understand, but yeah, just definitely something I noticed over the years of like replaying it.
Yeah. Vivian deserves it.
True.
Vivian definitely deserves the spotlight, and I love how deeply embedded in the story Vivian is. But I also loved some of my favorite moments in the game were Bowser and it is Kammy Koopa, right?
Yeah,
I didn't write this down. But yeah, Bowser and Kammy Koopa, and even like from the very start, their dynamic is very silly and very funny to the extent that Bowser gets to, I guess, his castle or a tower and goes, "Kammy called me. Where is that old hag?" And then a guard's Koopa goes, Lord Bowser, sir, the old hag isn't here, like something along those lines. And it's so funny. And then Bowser and Kammy are constantly like, Kammy calls Bowser these ridiculous things like
your grotesqueness.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Your nastiness.
It's so good. It really is some like very silly writing. You really get a sense of their dynamic.
Oh my gosh. Do you remember the one section where Kammy Koopa is like living it up in the glitz pit, but like Bowser was like swimming for like 1,000 years?
I was just a huge fan of their entire dynamic, and anytime that I got to play those sections, which unfortunately were very short, but again, you can't fit everything into a single game.
Yeah,
that was a highlight
game with them. Honestly,
I would play a spin-off game with the both of them, 100%.
It's funny because, like, in the first Paper Mario, like, Bowser is the big bad. Like, Kammy Koopa is, like, the secondary, like, support big bad. So it's, like, seeing them in such a different role in this game is so interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I love that was the role that they played. That they played this, like, yes, they're in a villain role, but almost like a wanting to be a villain and not the actual villain of the game. And it was so good. Big fan. Big fan.
Yeah, me too.
But I'd love to switch gears a little bit and talk about the music, because I played the game with some of the retro music, some of the new music, any new area that I got to, I would listen to both. And one thing that I really loved about how they implemented the music in the game is that the battle theme is rewritten in each area to fit the instrumentation, the genre that they chose for that area. So, for example, in the XS Express chapter, which I loved because I love murder mystery on a train. love.
Godfrey chapter. That's my second favorite chapter. It's so good.
So good. But the music is like very jazzy to fit the murder mystery vibe. And then in Far Outpost, they include a ton of bells and crystal-like sounds to fit the snowy theme. And I just think that was done really well. Narratively, it keeps the melodic identity of the music while changing the sound elements to fit the environment. So I'm curious, I had to have a preamble because, I mean, video game music? Yes, please. I'm curious whether you have a favorite track or two from the game and why.
Yeah, I really, really like the Glitz Pit music. I think it like, especially when you first land in the Glitz Pit, it opens it up with this, really like fun, like almost like you're in like Las Vegas or just some really like ritzy area, and the music's very like upbeat, fun. I think it even has like some. So it seems like they kind of like recognize that there was more of like an East Asian like inspired. The architecture was more East Asian inspired. So it sounded like they had like koto or some more like East Asian instruments like in the instrumentation. And I really liked that because in the original they didn't have that, and so I was like, this actually like matches really well. So that was a nice music upgrade, I thought. I and then when it gets like more mysterious, like in the Glitz Pit, I felt like the change from that really like that facade of the other music, it flowed really nicely, and so I really enjoyed the tracks there. And yeah. What about you?
I was gonna say Glitz Pit too. For the exact reasons that you said, but also they added a little bit of guitar in there too. And I mean, I'm just a sucker for a crunchy guitar. So if you listen to the mix, there's little crunchy guitars in the background as well. But yeah, I thought that was done really, really well. And then I switched it from the old music to the new music. I loved the new music of the Glitz Pit so much. Yeah, I just thought that it was so well done. And then the battle theme, when you go into every battle, is excellent, and it hypes you. I mean, it hypes you up to be a kind of competition. And yeah, shout out to the music team.
Yes,
I think they did a fantastic job reimagining the music for a remake. I was going to say remaster, but it's a remake.
Yeah, because I think that I did the same in a couple of the areas where I like use the badge that lets you like listen to the old music, and then I listen to the new music, and like some of the old music, I'm like, I think that the kind of iconic melody came through a bit better because it's more like MIDI. But I think that in the remake, it kind of takes a lot of, at least in most of the areas, it takes the original melody and amplifies it and really takes it to that next level. And it feels like, this is what it always should have sounded like. I really enjoyed Dupless's theme as well. I think that's such like a fun like battle. He's such like a kind of silly like villainous like villain, and I think his theme matches him really well. And like in the original, the melody is very like memorable, and I think that in the new version it takes that melody and it like amps it up like 10 times, and that's what I really enjoyed, is like hearing how they took those original tunes and made them more modern and brought them to like 2024. So I think the 20-year difference between the music, it like makes sense, and like both of the soundtracks are good for their own reasons.
Yeah. It was originally was it a GameCube title?
Yeah, GameCube title.
I think the original music still holds up, for sure. But I am just a sucker for listening to songs that are reimagined and remade and rearranged. And to your point, as I was rolling credits, there were from what I remember, I'm hoping I hope I remember this correctly, that there were a lot of live musicians in the remake, which is so cool to see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just loved Twilight Town. You mentioned Dupless, so I have to give it a shout out. I love anything spooky. Just give me all of the haunted, spooky places. Yeah, but
the creepy steeple was like the atmosphere of that was really great. The stained glass looks so good in the remake. Like I went on YouTube and I was like, I need to go look at what this looked like before because this looks amazing. I was like, wow, that is old. Like, it was good for its time, but like, oh my gosh, it looks so gorgeous in the remake.
yeah.
And like the vibes and like even the particle effects and like all of the enemies, like I think all of that brought it together so well. And then the music is just like, it was, yeah, I loved that section even more. And so I had like one huge complaint about Thousand Year Door, which is that there's a ton of backtracking. And they fixed the one thing that I hated about the Twilight Town chapter, which was that it had a ton of backtracking, and they added a pipe in the creepy steeple, and I was like, oh my gosh, this has literally just made it like 10 times better than the original because I hated that backtracking.
Yeah, I mean, there was still a fair bit of backtracking, but stuff like that made it a lot easier to go around.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially when enemies respawn and you're like, oh, I can't survive this.
I literally just fought you. I'm tired of fighting the same flowers that are in the same spot. Like,
and
you
getting
can
like
sing
one
your little song.
Point.
Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks. I promised I would get you out of here on time. So I have one final question and then we can open up the floor if you want to talk about anything else. But do you have a favorite environment? I thought that the environmental storytelling was so well done. And obviously like the game is so stylized and the art style is so unique, especially for a time like when it was originally released in 2004, but using the paper theme to build all of the environments was so unique and obviously all the characters. But I digress. Did you have a favorite environment just based off of what it looked like or the vibe or the colors?
I have to say that like the Shadow Palace, like it's still just so freaking cool.
Yes,
like,
I'm on the same page.
it's so incredible. Like the music, like the vibes, like the enemies that you encounter, like the way that the floor glows with the stars in the Shadow Palace, like that was like so cool. And then like the different like puzzles that you have to do. I think that it's such a fitting lead up to like this really epic battle. And yeah, it's so memorable to me, like it was in the original and even in the remake. Like when all of the candles light up in the final room. Like,
I was gonna say,
oh my gosh, like it's such a standout moment for me, and yeah, I really loved Shadow Palace.
Oh yes. Okay, I have to second that because that is easily my favorite environment in the game. This was one of the times where I didn't have Vivian in my party and I entered with Yoshi. and of course Yoshi being Yoshi, this like really spicy character, was like, ew, what is this place? I was like, what are you talking about? Look at these carpets, are gorgeous. There's these beautiful stained glass windows with roses on them, and then
like, yo, it's dank in here.
What are you talking about? Yeah, no, but actually, and then you get to the final boss room and all the candles ignite with purple flames, and I was like, oh yes. Look, I dye my hair black. My hair is not naturally black. This is my vibe.
We are edgelords to our core. We love the room with the purple flames and the demon that's been asleep for 1,000 years.
Myleah, you see right through me.
So did you at least try at least once to give in to her whim when she offers you the option?
No, I actually didn't. I didn't.
You have to go back and see.
Ooh, I don't know what happens. Maybe I'll have to watch a video.
Yeah, it's fun.
I don't know what happens, but yeah, it was a vibe.
It's such a vibe. Like,
it's so good. Princess Peach should honestly just wear the dress that she was wearing as the Shadow Queen, because it was this beautiful like black dress with
Yes.
I think they looked like rubies, I guess, that she had. I was like, dude, this
She's
looks
like
great.
rocking like the black lipstick and like the eyeshadow. I was like, hold on, this is kind of a serve.
Yeah. We need it.
I drew like some old fan art like years ago, like the Shadow Queen and like Shadow Peach. I'll have to share it with you because it's like on my old Deviant art. Like,
yes.
It's such an iconic scene and memory for me.
It's so good. More of that, please.
Yes. Yes.
I promised I would get you out on time because I know you have something right after our recording. So I want to open up the floor. Is there one thing that we haven't touched on that you wanted to touch on before we wrap up?
I feel like one thing that I wanted to talk about is like the art style and also the skills that Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door uses, which is different from the original Paper Mario, like 64. So I feel like it does a great job of utilizing the paper theme, like with the paper boats and the paper plane and like becoming a tube. Like, this is just my opinion, but some of the later Paper Mario games, I feel like, go too far with the paper theme to the point where it's an annoying gimmick rather than like a charm point to the series. And I think that Paper Mario 1000 really finds that like sweet spot of like, yes, it's paper, but it's not too paper. Is I have played a couple of like the later games in the franchise, and I'm not as big of a fan of them because they don't focus as much on narrative. But I thought that they added this like fun puzzle element to certain areas, and usually like it's pretty obvious what you're supposed to do. It's not a difficult game by any means, but like I thought that those little areas where like you had to fly across and become a plane or become a boat were really fun. But I'd love to get like your thoughts. Like what did you think about the like paper gimmick?
I loved it. I mean, I love the fact that you could become a paper boat. I love the fact that you could become a paper airplane. I thought that they implemented it quite well from a mechanic standpoint. Mm-hmm. I played the original Paper Mario. I mean, this was forever ago, but I have not played Origami King. I haven't played, I think there's one called Sticker Star.
Yeah.
I think there's a
too
Mario.
Much paper. That was too much paper.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I haven't played any of the other ones. I think there's a Mario and Luigi one as well. So I don't have a reference point for what might be too much paper, but I think at least in A Thousand Year Door, I really like the way that they implemented the mechanics. And in that way, it wasn't just, hey, we have this cool art style. It's, hey, we have this cool art style, but we're going to implement it into the narrative design of the game by calling out that, hey, we're all paper and therefore we get these cool abilities because we're paper. So,
yeah.
I liked it.
Like, yeah. And you know, there's like sections where like the stairs fold out of the wall or the fact that Flurry, like she like blows wind. So like the paper like peels away from the environment and things like that. Like I thought those are like classy ways of like incorporating the paper element. And it like really speaks to the style. Like, oh yeah, we're playing on the fact that this is a paper game. This is a paper Mario, but it's not like overly gimmicky in that way. So I really love that about Paper Mario, and I like the way that it utilizes the paper elements because I think it really stands out from the other Mario games in the series by far.
Definitely. Yeah. I feel like this is the one that people talk about as being very, very good. But again, I haven't I have not played the original Paper Mario in ages. I haven't played the others. So no point of reference, but I'll report back when I do.
Yes, please do. I definitely recommend Paper Mario 64 and Super Paper Mario. And I recently played Origami King, and I wasn't crazy about it. But yeah, that's just my opinion. But yeah, I definitely like the first three Paper Marios the best, and I feel like they stay the most true to like the narrative spirit and the sassiness, and they use the partners the best and have like the most charm. I feel like and. So those are the ones that I always recommend, and that trio is like the best for me, and I usually recommend those. I just love the Paper Mario series so much, so I'm glad I got the opportunity to talk about it with you, especially.
I'm so glad. Thank you so much for coming on. This was awesome. And if you're listening, thank you so much for being here and for listening. If you have any feedback, as always, please send it our way. Our socials will be in the description if you'd like to follow us. And if you're not currently following, please do so that you don't miss a future episode. And Myleah, thank you again. This was awesome. Your energy about Paper Mario is infectious. So I might need to go back and play the original.
Thank you so much for having me and also enabling me to talk about Paper Mario for an hour, because I will talk about Paper Mario for 2, 3, 4 hours. So I'm just glad that, we had some topics to stick to, and
I love it.
we got to cover a lot of things. So I'm really excited that we had the chance to chat.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you for making the time. This was awesome. Please come back.
I will. Absolutely.
All right. Have a good one.